Hey everybody, welcome to today's show. As always, we are powered by CLNS Media and LakersNation.com, your home for everything Lakers. Today's show is brought to you by Uptime Energy Drinks. Uptime Energy that you can really feel. Find it at GMC, 7-Eleven, or get it the way I do, which is on Amazon.com. Order a whole case of them. At this point, I'm basically living off of Uptime Energy Drink. It is fantastic. Today, we're going to be talking a bit about Lakers training camp, which is so exciting. We're just days away from seeing the Lakers out there on the floor. Joining me is Joey Ramirez from the Lakers, and we're going to chat a little bit about what's going on in training camp right now. Of course, make sure you guys go follow him at Joey A. Ramirez. Joey, thanks so much for hopping on here, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Trevor. I feel kind of like an energy drink, like a human energy drink right now, man. It's great to have Lakers basketball back.
It is. The offseason always feels long, but this one in particular felt super long. I mean, because you've got LeBron James in town, all these new faces, all this curiosity about what the young kids have been doing. There's just so much to look forward to. I'm like a little kid waiting for Christmas Day.
Yeah, man. I mean, ever since that, July 1st, we've just been waiting, chomping at the bit. Like, oh, here's LeBron photoshopped into a Lakers jersey. Oh, here's LeBron, walking around LA. Here's LeBron doing this, and this, and just like every little piece that we can consume, we're just jumping on. And now it's actually here. We're a few days away from seeing LeBron on a basketball court in a Lakers uni playing basketball, and I don't know how much more exciting that can get.
And that's the way a lot of fans have felt. Is that same energy around the practice facility?
Yes and no. I would say definitely that level of energy is there. You can see it when the guy, they only let the media in for the last 10 minutes or so of practice, and you can definitely see the energy that they have, but it's not so much like the energy that I'm kind of having right now, where I'm just psyched to just, to start the season. It's a lot more business like, which isn't really surprising given that LeBron is the guy setting the tone here. He's a guy in his 16th year. He's a guy who's just been to 8 straight NBA finals. So he's not exactly, he's not in the puppy dog phase of his career where he's just, so excited to do every single thing. But at the same time, LeBron's also a guy who he honestly loves what he's doing. And he's made sure to mention that to us several times in these scrums that we've had with him. He said something along the lines today of, if you're not having fun doing what you're doing, you're in the wrong line of work. And so, you can kind of tell that even if they are putting out this business first kind of atmosphere, they are definitely pretty excited to get things going. And it's pretty crazy with this, ever since last season with training camp getting shortened, it's only 1 week until preseason. So we'll see what they got in store.
Right. It's at just a breakneck pace. I mean, they really only have a few days before they start playing games. We know they were playing in some pickup games and things like that before, but as far as working with the coaching staff in a full team atmosphere, it's very limited as far as the amount of time that they have. What comparisons can you make from this season to last season? How is it different in the facility right now?
It's definitely different in the sense of, first of all, right off the bat, personnel. So you look at the Lakers and the roster they have right now. It's 19 players, and that includes guys who aren't likely to make the team, that are, just rookies kind of feeling their way out into the NBA. But so even if you count in those guys, you have 13 guys who are either rookies, sophomores, or in their third year. And you have 5 guys who are vets but are new to the team. And then you have KCP, who's kind of, he's in his second year and he's still a young guy, but he's technically in the vet kind of category. But that's just a lot of new faces. And that's a lot of people who don't have a lot of experience playing off one another. Something really interesting that I found that LeBron said today was that one of the things that he kind of has to feel out is where guys like the ball when he passes it to them. And LeBron, you know basketball well, Trevor, so LeBron is an elite distributor, second in assists last year, and doing that from the forward spot is just bananas. But even more so than the numbers, he's talking about, oh, yeah, I need to figure out if the guy likes it high or low. Does he want it passed to his numbers on his uniform, or does he want it passed to his forehead? Does he like to catch it with the seams or without the seams? And that's such crazy that's like beyond passing. That's like almost like it's almost like you're like ordering something online and you get to decide, you check your options. Do I want this gift wrapped or not or something? And so that's kind of what we're seeing here in practice right now is guys feeling each other out, lots of new faces. Even the vets are new faces. And Luke said today that if they go to San Diego on Sunday and they only have 3 plays put in the playbook, they're just going to run those 3 plays for 48 minutes. And they're really not that's kind of one of the things that I think you got to kind of keep in perspective when they do go out on the court on Sunday is that, like, this isn't going to be the offense, like, at all. And we'll see. It's like a taste. You're getting an appetizer of what the Lakers are going to look like. But, man, I wouldn't really expect too much out of the offense come Sunday.
Right, yeah. I mean, they've had hardly any time to really install a full offense. It's not like it's just the same crew rolling over from last year so they can just continue. They really have to almost start from scratch. They do have some players returning. What's the competition like out there at this point? I mean, we've been hearing all these stories about how competitive these guys are, especially guys like Rondo and JaVale McGee. Does it seem like the guys are really getting out there and getting after each other? I know you're only seeing bits and pieces, but of course we've seen footage of even 3-point shootouts. It looked like they were pretty competitive between the two sides.
Yeah, I mean, you got a group of young guys that were, if anything, competitive last year, and you got the vets coming in, and these are vets that are very strong personality veterans. You got JaVale, you got Lance, you got Rondo. Rondo in terms of strong personalities is at the top of the list, even in the NBA. And then you got the guy who's kind of setting the tone is LeBron James. So if there's not competition on a LeBron James team, we've kind of seen what happens when LeBron doesn't think that things are going at a caliber that he likes. He's not afraid to speak his mind. So from what I've seen and from what I've heard from people who have been at these scrimmages and practices, the competition level has definitely been there. And I'm pretty excited to see what happens when. Actually, I'm going to take a step back real quick because I just want to shout out to Svi Mykhailiuk, a guy that I could talk about for like an hour right now, who has been apparently killing it in the gym. And then to go off of what I was originally about to say, I'm really excited to see when Lonzo Ball comes back to full strength and kind of see that point guard, not only the competition between him and Rondo, but what they kind of, at the end of the day, this is still one team, one Lakers team that's going to be playing against 29 teams in the NBA. So what can Lonzo learn from Rondo? What sorts of things are they kind of bouncing off each other? How do they play? And one of the most kind of interesting questions in my mind is Luke going to stagger Rondo and Lonzo, or are they going to share the court some? Can one of those guys play off the ball better than many might expect? So those are the kind of things that I'm looking for. What about you, Trevor? Is there anything that you've been kind of honing in on with these training camp battles?
Oh yeah, I mean definitely the Rondo Lonzo battle. I think that one of the most interesting ones, though, and I think it's going to be one of the closest battles, is going to be Josh Hart versus KCP. It's so fascinating, especially considering how far Josh Hart has come. I mean, winning Summer League MVP. I can only imagine how just intense that competition is going to be for that starting 2-guard spot.
Yeah, man. I'm glad you brought that up because the one thing about that spot is they're just such similar guys, obviously at different points in their career, though maybe not as different as some people might think because KCP is, I think, only 25 years old. Mm-hmm, right. But they're both these guys that are 2 of the top 3-point shooters on this team. They're 2 of the most defensive-minded players on the team. They both do really well in transition when it comes to either spotting up for a 3 or attacking the rim. And they're both guys who are surprisingly really great rebounders, which we saw last year when the Lakers didn't really have that kind of rebounding magnet in the down low that some guys have. I mean, Julius Randle was to a certain extent that guy, but for the most part they had Julius and Brook Lopez and others kind of box out and let the guards take care of things. And definitely Josh and KCP were among those to take that leap. And so you got 2 guys that are almost the Spider-Man meme going at it. And I don't know. I really love Josh Hart, but I think KCP has really shown some stuff too. Magic Johnson hyped up KCP himself a couple days ago when he said that it's a completely different player. Mm-hmm. That he's coming
his diet,
in.
Right?
Yeah. He's cut out sugar. He's cut out fast food. And he's a guy who had a pretty good motor to begin with. So I'm curious to see now that he says that he's got this whole new endurance, what he looks like out there.
Yeah, I mean, Joey, here's the thing. The narrative on KCP amongst Lakers fans seemed to sour pretty quickly last year, especially when he had that rough month of December. And because of that, I think people don't understand how good KCP was from January on last year, how good he was shooting the basketball. And unfortunately, that negative narrative stuck with him a little bit. So I think a lot of people, Josh Hart is kind of still has the shiny new toy aspect to him, where people see him as the new guy coming in. And remember that he was Summer League MVP. I think this is a much closer competition than a lot of people realize. And it's because KCP is much better than some people think he is. He doesn't get enough credit in my mind. He was elite as a spot up shooter. And I can only imagine the looks that he's going to get with LeBron James out there on the floor with him.
Yeah, Trevor, I think you're spot on with that, man. KCP is a guy who, I'm just pulling this up right now. Post All-Star break, he was 42% from three, which is just a red hot number.
That's a Steph Curry number right there. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Yeah. And among players who attempted 125 plus 3-pointers in that post All-Star stretch, he was fifth in the NBA in percentage, which is, like you said, that's Golden State level shooting right there. And obviously you can't just siphon off part of the season and say this is who he is. The games before the All-Star break definitely counted as much as the games after. But I'm with you, man. I think that he's a guy who he's kind of treated as a finished product too, because people kind of, he was the 8th overall draft pick. He's been in the league for a few years. But he's still a younger guy. He's still in his early to mid 20s. All of a sudden, he started being a really great rebounder, second among two guards in rebounding last year, next to Jimmy Butler. Like you said, spot up shooter, really good finisher at the rim, hit exactly 2/3 of his shots in the restricted area. And honestly, the only Laker that they really went to off of a screen last season, Luke Walton, I think is a really great. I think he's a really great coach when it comes to drawing up plays, especially out of timeouts. And this is something that Miles Simon has really pointed out to us back at Summer League. And KCP was the only one who took more than 100 shots off screens last year, and he took 156 of them. So when they wanted to draw something up, they went to KCP. And I mean, definitely in my mind, Josh Hart's a guy who could definitely fill that role moving forward. So that kind of leans back into what we were talking about earlier about those two similar players going at it. But I wouldn't count out KCP. And in fact, because coaches tend to go, if it's a tie, the tie goes to the vet. I would say maybe KCP should be considered the favorite, but it's definitely going to be very close between those two guys.
Yeah, I think that he probably ultimately gets the nod as well. Although, I mean, you never know with Luke Walton which direction he's going to go, because a lot of people, we look at this as just, okay, who's the better player? Who's the more productive player? And that's really difficult to do when we're talking about KCP and Josh Hart. But Luke Walton isn't going to look at just who's the better player. He's looking at who's the better fit. Where's the chemistry in the starting five? Where's the chemistry in the bench unit? What's best for the team as a whole? So he's going to take all those things into consideration as well when he's figuring out who's going to ultimately win that starting spot. And maybe more importantly, really, than starting is who closes the game.
Yeah, and first of all, you make a great point about fit. And we saw this exact scenario play out last year with the starting 4 spot, where it was Julius Randle against Larry Nance Jr. And, anybody could tell you that Julius Randle had more talent than Larry Nance Jr., but the fit made more sense at the time, at least to Luke, to put Larry in the starting lineup for the defensive cohesion that he brought. Julius had a great year last year. And so it's impossible to say if he would have had that great year in the beginning, if he was starting, or if that inspired him, or, whatever it is. But the point is that we've seen Luke deal with starting roles in kind of different ways than people expect him to go. So that's not something that we should really discount moving into these training camp battles. And you're right about your second point about, it matters even more than who's starting is who's closing. And we kind of saw last year that Luke kind of rode the hot hand. If it was Isaiah Thomas, it was Isaiah Thomas. If it was Lonzo Ball, it was Lonzo Ball. If it was JC, it was Jordan Clarkson. This year, I think there might be some more structure. And this is just kind of my guess, given that people are kind of having, I don't know if you call it more defined roles, but you definitely have LeBron James closing out every single game, and he's definitely your first option for every big bucket. And then you kind of just fill out around him. Am I making any sense, Trevor? Because I think what I'm trying to get at is that LeBron brings a certain amount of stability, and that the young guys getting another year of experience also brings stability. And so maybe not in the beginning of the season, but maybe, toward the All-Star break, Brandon Ingram makes a leap and he's a definite closer. Or maybe it's Kyle Kuzma who makes a definite leap and he's going to be in the closing lineup no matter what. I just think that having LeBron there and having veterans there too, Rondo might be an option there, even though, he's not necessarily a young guy who's going to be making a leap at this point in his career. But I just think the combination of LeBron and added experience kind of gives them more of a calming water for Luke to kind of decide, like, hey, I don't have to ride the hot hand every single time. I can have kind of a skeleton of 5 guys that I think I'm going to go to, and if someone's hot, I'm going to insert that guy.
Oh, you're absolutely right. It gives Luke plenty of options, plenty of room to kind of play around with things. And then once he gets that kind of zeroed in on the group that he wants to stick with, he still has the flexibility to move in whoever is the hot hand or what have you. It's going to be interesting to see how he handles it all. I look at this Lakers roster and I think about Luke Walton's challenge and what stands before him. I mean, not just managing the personalities, not just managing minutes and all that kind of stuff, but Luke has such a deep squad that he has on his plate just a ton of wonderful problems, right? He's got these decisions to make that you want to be able to make those decisions, but nonetheless, they are some tricky ones that he's going to have to navigate. So I think one of the big storylines for the season is going to be Luke and how he manages this team moving forward as still a very young coach.
Yeah, no, you're definitely spot on with that, because Luke and I think most NBA coaches like to put out a 9-man rotation. Mm-hmm. And then, depending on the matchups, depending on, foul trouble or whatever, you can add in a 10th or an 11th guy. This Lakers squad already has 11 guys that, in my mind, are rotation-worthy guys. You have Lonzo Ball, Rajon Rondo, Brandon Ingram, KCP, Josh Hart, Lance, Svi Mykhailiuk, LeBron James, JaVale McGee, Kyle Kuzma, Michael Beasley, and then it depends on how you feel about Ivica Zubac if you think that he's a rotation guy. So like you're kind of saying, like those are a lot of different options, but it's kind of the debate between, do you want continuity? Do you want to run out the same 9 guys and then just have kind of your curveballs that you can throw in there? Or do you want to keep all these 11 guys who each bring something different? And do you want to be kind of, all right, well, LeBron's going to play every game, Brandon's going to play every game, Rondo, et cetera. But then those kind of back rotation guys, maybe you're just mixing them in here and there, and it's a constantly evolving sort of organism. I don't really know what the answer to that question is. All I know is that Luke likes to play 9 guys, and with the amount of guys on this roster who are NBA level players, is that going to be feasible? I don't know. I mean, you take a guy like Michael Beasley, who is a guy that can just heat up in a minute. This is a guy, there was a stat that he was 11th in the NBA when it comes to points per minute, which is kind of it's a tricky stat because it doesn't exactly tell you much. Like, it's not like He's the 11th best scorer in the NBA. It just shows you that he's a guy that you could put in for, maybe 10 minutes a night and he'll go get buckets for you. But do you want that every single night, or do you want defense that night? That's going to be, like you said, this is going to be Luke's kind of greatest challenge for this season. I mean, and that might not even be true because it's a LeBron James team. So maybe there is something different that we're not seeing right now that is going to be the biggest challenge for Luke's season. But this is definitely going to be a big one because there is so many guys that bring so many different things, and you got to kind of find that balance of defense versus offense versus rebounding versus all these things that you have to weigh. Is there enough shooting? Is there enough playmaking? Which is probably, there'll probably be enough playmaking given the guys on this roster. Right. But will there be enough shooting? Will there be enough defense? I mean, you're right. This is just my long-winded way of saying that I agree with you. I do think that this is going to be a year where Luke is really tested, and specifically in the rotation department.
I have confidence in Luke. I think that he's going to be fine figuring it out, but it's going to be interesting to see what choices he makes along the way. And I'm sure there's going to be some bumps in the road and everything, because that's what happens in an NBA season. Joey, you mentioned Svi. You mentioned him as part of your group of guys that deserve rotation minutes and everything. And I got to ask, there's a video going around on Twitter right now.
We talking about Pete, right?
Yeah, from Pete Zayas, our buddy Laker Film Room. And basically Svi does not miss. So I got to ask, does Svi ever miss? Because from watching him in Summer League, his shot is just absolutely gorgeous. I'm blown away by how repeatable his shot is, how consistent it is time after time. And what's the feel around him? Is he, now that he's actually playing in scrimmages against these NBA players, is he able to still hold his own? Because there's a little bit of a Kyle Kuzma element here, where excelled in Summer League, the people said, well, what's going to happen when he's going up against, the real guys? Now Svi's at that point. Kuzma, kept moving upward last season. What's your take on Svi? Is he going to be able to do the same thing?
Oh man, well, my take on Svi, like I can give this to you in like a sonnet or something, because I'm so about Svi Mykhailiuk. I'm all in on this guy, and I know that a lot of guys that are in that gym for these sessions are all in on this guy too. Let's start with Pete's video, which if you're listening to this and you haven't seen it, do yourself a favor, add Laker Film Room. Pete's a great follow in general. You're probably already following him because he's that great.
Yeah.
But this video that he posted, Svi hits literally, I think it's 19 or 20 consecutive 3-pointers, and no, he's not being guarded by anybody. But what impresses me most about these 19 3-pointers in a row is that he's not just in a corner hitting 19 straight corner 3-pointers, which is impossible for guys like me and you, and I would say 99% of people listening to this right now.
Most of the population on Earth.
Exactly. How many people on this planet can stand in a corner and hit 19 straight 3-pointers? Not many. But how many can do it the way that Svi was doing it in the gym, which was not spotting up in the corner? I kind of broke this down. I went a little too deep into this, Trevor. So forgive me.
Okay, but we're gonna go in depth here. All right, I like it.
He hit 5 3-pointers starting in the corner and then going out to the wing, and then he hit 3 straight stepping into the wing, and then he hit 3 straight backpedaling into the wing, and then he hit 3 straight sidestepping into the wing, and then he went to the other wing and he hit 2 straight. So he's on the move constantly. He's in different locations and he's shooting. Like I said, off the move. So that makes it, just by its nature, so much more difficult. The backpedaling threes are the ones that really impressed me. That
those were
amazing. He could go from a lateral movement to backpedaling to sidestepping, and it just shows the balance that this guy has with his shot. And he's 44% from 3-point range at Kansas last year. Led the Big 12. Hit the most 3-pointers in his school's history. And if you know anything about basketball, you know that Kansas is playing for a pretty long time and they've been pretty good. He's a guy that most impressively to me is not just a shooter. I mean, if you watch him in Summer League, he's going up and he's fighting for rebounds. He's a better defender than you probably expect him to be. He was a point guard growing up, so he can play make a little bit. He ran some pick and roll, both in Summer League and with his national team in Ukraine. He even nutmegged a guy in Summer League, which was pretty fun. He has this step back jumper that he just breaks out in Summer League for out of the blue, hits a Euro step. Like, when you say he reminds you of Kyle Kuzma a little bit, and I don't want to go over promising, for as much as I've already gushed about Svi and I've told you that I love this guy and I think he's going to be really great. I don't want to overpromise, but what he reminds me most about Kuzma is that Kuzma was a guy who came in with all these tools that you just don't see rookies ever having. You don't see rookies having a Euro step. You don't see rookies having a sky hook. And those are two things that Kuzma brought in, much less his fadeaway jumper and all these other things that he has. Svi comes in and he's already an elite 3-point shooter, and he's already able to step back and hit shots and handle a little bit. And so that's I just kind of get these like flashbacks, and it's not just me. He's the 47th overall pick, so he doesn't have a lot of expectations, but he goes into Summer League, he tears it up, 17 points a night, 3 threes a night, 41% from 3, gets some attention, goes to play with his national team, scores 22 points against Spain, who was undefeated at the time, and Ukraine beats Spain, which is, unheard of on the FIBA level, and then immediately comes back to LA. We have a press conference with Magic Johnson, who gushes about how Svi hit 6 straight 3-pointers in one of their scrimmages. We talked to Alex Caruso and Travis Ware about the practices, or about the scrimmages, and Caruso saying is the steal of the draft. Ware's saying, yeah, this guy is so much better than I expected. His defense is better than I expected. And then just today we talked to Brandon Ingram, and I asked him about what he can learn from LeBron and Rondo on, when it comes to playmaking. And BI kind of took that as more of a I can learn certain things from everybody, which is fair. But the thing he tacked on at the end, which got my attention, was, and I could probably learn some things from Svi because he can shoot the damn basketball. And I was just like, man, these are so many people who are just keep singing Svi's praises. And when we talk about our last point about Luke balancing the rotation, Svi's a guy who it seems is going to be clawing for some minutes, which is it's literally unheard of from the 47th overall pick, because if you look at the last 10 years of the NBA draft, guys who were drafted 47th or below just rarely ever have any kind of an impact. Like you have Isaiah Thomas, who was the last pick of the draft, who ended up being an all-star and an MVP candidate for 1 year. You have Patty Mills, who was a key piece on a championship team. So you have those two guys who are kind of the gold standard of that part of the draft, those last 15 or so picks. But then you have then it kind of tails off. You have guys who are pretty good, like Etuan Moore, who, they're good at what they do. They can contribute to a good team, but they don't really take your breath away. And then you have about 4 of those kind of Etuan Moore type guys. And then it just drops off completely. And you have nobody who's making a dent in the NBA. And for the Lakers to find potentially a guy like that, a guy more potentially in the IT or the Patty Mills level, I mean, that's scouting at its finest, in my opinion, to find someone that talented that low in the draft.
It's amazing. And I've been making this point for a few weeks now. Well, since Summer League, really, that it blows my mind that at the 47th overall pick, you can make a legitimate argument, and I think a strong argument, that Svi Mykhailiuk is the best shooter in the draft. When do you find the best of anything at the 47th pick? I mean, it's incredible. And he went into Summer League with this goal, but showed that he is so much more than just a shooter, Joey, like you said. He can defend, he can pass, he can handle the ball. He's perfectly comfortable leading the fast break. Not that you expect him to do that a lot, but the point is that he can make decisions out there on the floor, which is what the NBA is all about. It's what the Lakers built this team around, is being able to give the ball to multiple guys who can be trusted to make decisions off the bounce. Guys like Lance Stevenson, Rajon Rondo, players like that are able to orchestrate the offense, or at the very least make a smart play. So when you look at this roster, it's hard to see where Svi gets minutes, but if he's playing the way that we're hearing, and if he's shooting the way that we know he can, and he's got that incredible balance, it's going to be hard for Luke Walton not to find minutes for him. So I think that's going to be one of the big stories this season, is where do we carve out minutes for Svi?
Yeah, man. I mean, I totally agree with you. I don't know. That's tough, because the wing rotation is probably the deepest rotation that the Lakers have. You got BI, you got KCP, you got Josh Hart, you got Lance Stevenson. And then, if LeBron wants to play the 3, LeBron can play the 3, obviously. So where do you find minutes for Svi? Maybe you play him at the 2, maybe you play him at the 3. Obviously injuries happen throughout the year. So I don't really worry that Svi will just ride the bench the entire year, because, at some point, it's likely that 2 wings will be injured on this team if by that point Svi hasn't already forced his way into the rotation. But man, I really can't wait to see it, because like you said, he is possibly the best shooter in this draft. And his peers said that themselves. He was voted the 2nd best shooter in the draft by the rookie survey, only behind Trae Young. And I think you can make an argument that he's better than Trae Young, at least when it comes to shooting. And he's a guy who does more than shoot, like you and I have just talked about. And he's probably the guy I'm most excited to watch during preseason, because then you'll kind of get a feel if where he is in a sense. Because Kyle Kuzma, we had the electric summer league, and then it was like, okay, well, let's see what he does in the preseason. And if you remember last year's preseason, he was like a top 3 preseason scorer, which, take that with a grain or two of salt.
Right, it's preseason.
But exactly. You have guys who light it up in preseason that never really sniff an NBA rotation. But it definitely does reinforce, like, okay, Kyle looks pretty good. He's going to be pushing for some real minutes. And we'll see if Svi does, kind of follows that same path come Sunday and beyond.
Now, Joey, you just said that you are most excited to see Svi Mykhailiuk in preseason. I guess this is the qualifier here. Are you more excited to see Svi than LeBron James? Because I think that'll tell us how sold on Svi you are right here.
Oh man, I think I'll cost myself any shot at a cameo in Space Jam 2 if I don't say LeBron James.
Fair enough.
You know what? We've seen so much of LeBron James. I can't wait to see him in a Laker uniform. I can't wait to hear the crowd roar when they announce him in the starting 5. It's just going to be so much fun. Just the atmosphere that guy will bring to the Lakers and even to these preseason games. So I got to say I am most excited about LeBron James, as much of a shock that might be. But man, I will be keeping an eye on Svi. You can guarantee that.
Hey, one guy that I'm curious about that we've heard surprisingly little about is the 25th pick, who I thought had a very nice summer league of his own, Mo Wagner, but then he did get hurt. What's his status? What do we know about what's going on with him right now?
Yeah, so we know that knee is still lingering for Mo. We got an update today, and basically he hasn't really. Here, let me get the official. I don't want to be giving your audience less than perfect information. So let me pull up what we wrote today. Mo's a guy who. Okay, here I got it right now. Left knee contusion. Same thing from summer league. Has not been able to participate in training camp. So that's unfortunate because kind of like you said, Mo is a guy who did some things at summer league, and I thought most impressively he did some things outside of the things that we knew he could do. We knew he's a good shooter. We knew he's a good pick and roll / pick and pop option. We knew he can run the floor, and he did not shoot the ball well at all in summer league. I think he hit somewhere in the 30s percentage field goal and somewhere in the 20s 3-point. So definitely below his standard. But he showed some pretty quick hands on defense. So showed some pretty quick feet as well. Got some rebounds here and there. I know I just said that we already knew he could run the floor, but he actually did, show some mobility that, maybe he can squeeze into this kind of fast-paced Lakers system quicker than we think. It's a shame because this training camp, I feel like, was a good chance for Mo to really make a good first impression. And it kind of sucks seeing him not being able to show what he can do. And it's so hard, as we already talked about, for a rookie on this roster to crack a rotation that's so deep that I think that Mo is probably going to have to, maybe spend some time in the G League this year, which is something that, Josh Hart had to do last year. And Josh Hart is a guy who's going to be pushing for a starting spot this year. So with Mo, it's a bummer, but it's one of those things where, we don't know how quickly he's going to be back. Maybe he'll be back for a handful of the games in this preseason, and we'll get an idea of what he looks like alongside these veterans and fellow young guys. And if not, he's still very young, and the idea of him cracking the rotation this early wasn't exactly, those weren't exactly a really great chance of him doing that. So I'm trying to be patient with Mo because I've already got so much invested in Svi that I don't know if my heart can take it, Trevor, if both of these guys don't immediately become all-stars year one.
I think that's reasonable, right? To assume that Svi is going to become the greatest shooter ever his first year. That's got to be okay, right?
Yeah, man. I mean, shooting stars, land on a cloud. That's what they always say.
There we go. Hey, let's chat real quick about a comment that LeBron made. He talked about this Lakers team in some ways being a little bit like the early years of his Miami Heat team. in terms of the defense leading to the offense and them liking to getting out and running, really running that fast break. That feels like a very Magic Johnson sentiment, of course, coming from the Showtime era where they turned defense into offense and made themselves legends because of it. What do you think about that? How successful do you think this Lakers team can be implementing that strategy? To me, it feels like very much a continuation of what we saw last season.
Trevor, this jumped out to me too, because this is something that LeBron has referenced twice in back-to-back days. Today, like you said, he talked about turning stops into transition offense. Yesterday, he also mentioned that that back in Miami, he liked to get out and run, let the other guys handle the ball a bit more, and that's something he sees he can do on this, very, very heavy on ball handlers roster that the Lakers have. This is something that I was kind of digging my teeth into. I went back and looked at those Miami teams and I compared it to last year's Lakers team. And if you want to check this out on Lakers.com, it's up there. Those Miami teams were actually slower in pace than I remember. They topped out at 15th, so league average about, and they bottomed out at 27th. So that's a very slow pace.
Right.
And but the thing with those Heat teams was that they were such efficient scorers, and having LeBron James and Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh in your prime, you're going to have efficient scoring. But they constantly were in either the top half or, just knocking on the top 10 of fast break points. So they didn't have to necessarily run a fast pace to still score a lot in transition, which was really interesting to me. So it kind of, that's kind of where I think LeBron's seeing this is that they just got so many great, so many high quality opportunities by getting a defensive stop and then getting out on the break, that even if they weren't running so fast, like possession wise, they were still getting really good opportunities. And the second thing that jumped out to me was that those Heat teams were even more elite defensively than I remember. They were at worst 11th in defensive rating and at best 4th, and the other two seasons 5th and 7th. So those were really good defenses that didn't run so much as, we might remember, but they were really potent on the fast break because of, exactly what LeBron's talking about. You focus on the defense and then you take your chances on the fast break. And then I kind of compared that to the Lakers last year. They were 12th in defensive rating, which is, that's really good.
That was a big jump up from last year.
Yeah.
From the year before.
And that's like the 85 Bears compared to where they were the past 4 years. So that was that's kind of an inkling of what maybe LeBron sees shades of those Miami teams based on that correlation. And then where the Lakers are similar yet completely different to those Heat teams is the pace, because they run it as much as anyone else in this league. They were 3rd in pace last year and 2nd in fast break points. And so I think that's kind of, there is a parallel there. There's both teams are good to great defensive teams, and they're both, these volatile, fast breaking teams. And the big difference is the pace itself. And in my head, at least, and we won't be able to see this obviously until they actually start playing regular season games and, a good sample size of them, so we can take a step back and see if this is actually what is happening on the court. But the thing is with me is running the pace to the degree that the Lakers run it, that kind of, it sort of massages the differences in my head, where those Miami Heat teams are all-time great NBA teams. Those are teams that we're going to remember and tell our grandkids about. And so you can't really compare a Lakers team in its first year to those Heat teams. Mm-hmm. But if you crank up the pace, you can kind of do a better impression of them, because there's just more of it's almost like a catalyzing factor where the pace is kind of, just upping the offense to a point where even if the offense isn't perfect, just adding that pace makes it that much more dangerous and gives you that much more of an opportunity to get some points from a LeBron leaking out, or of a Kyle Kuzma streaking out for an outlet, and just getting those easy buckets that are manufactured by the style that you play. I think that can kind of bring this Lakers team up to a degree that if they were running a more traditional, middle of the road pace, let's rely on our half court offense more than the Lakers like to. I don't think they'd be as dangerous, and it also helps. It's a two-way street. LeBron talked today about how clamping down on defense is going to help them score on offense. But I think when you're scoring those easy buckets, when Kyle Kuzma is going up and he gets a free layup and gets to pad his stat from 19 points on the night to 21 points on the night, I think that makes you get back on defense and start saying, all right, let's get another one of those. So I'm curious to see if that is in practice as close to I think it will be in theory, but I kind of see where he's going with that. It's definitely – and sorry, last point. I know I'm rambling here, Trevor. But with those Heat teams, like you're not going to duplicate them, and you're not even going to duplicate last year's Lakers because there's been so much turnover on the roster. Mm-hmm. But the idea of building off of the similarities that this Lakers team had last year to previous LeBron teams is interesting to me because as we've heard throughout this offseason, they went about making this team, at least from a roster standpoint, completely different than any LeBron team that he's played on before. Not so much of an emphasis on shooting, more of an emphasis on playmaking and defense. And I'm curious to see if the blueprint of a Miami team will bring out similar results in a Lakers team that does look similar, but is built to be different than anything that LeBron's ever played with.
Yeah, it's interesting to see the way the Lakers have put this team together. I mean, we talk about the fast break. The Lakers were able to get out on the break quite a bit last season. They weren't particularly efficient at scoring on the break, but it leveled the playing field somewhat for a team that couldn't really execute in the half court to the same degree as some of these other teams. But when they get out in transition, they're able to generate points per possession at a higher rate than even the Golden State Warriors half court offense did. And that's just because transition buckets are that much easier. So in that way, defense turning into offense, you can be extremely deadly if you can get out and run. And I'm excited to see if LeBron's presence plus these veterans allows them to continue to keep the pace high, but improving the efficiency so they start scoring more often when they get into transition, because that's where that team can really, really make the leap to that next level. So we're going to see how that all plays out. But again, it all starts with defense. And I think that's something that people often get confused when we think about the Lakers Showtime teams. We think about, the beautiful offense. We think about Magic Johnson's no-look passes. We think about Worthy filling the lane. We think about Kareem's sky hook. But people forget about how good they had to be defensively in order to create those opportunities. So that's why I love what the Lakers are doing right now, what Luke Walton is doing as far as focusing on the defense and then letting the offense take care of itself, because I think that's probably going to be what we're going to see from this team, especially early on. We'll see the half court might be a bit muddied, a bit of a mess, but when they can get out and run, we could see some very special things happen.
Yeah, you make two really great points. You make a great point in the sense that, and this is kind of what I was trying to say that you said a lot more eloquently, even a middle of the road in terms of efficiency, fast break offense is better than the best half court offense that is in the NBA, the Golden State Warriors. So the more that you get out on the run, the more efficient your offense is going to be, even if on a scale of fast break offense, it's not as efficient as, say, Golden State is on the fast break.
Right.
So manufacturing those points that way is a strategy that I see really helping the Lakers moving forward, and that we also saw help them last year because they were a high-scoring team, even if they were toward the bottom of the league when it came to offensive efficiency. And your second good point, yeah, those Showtime teams were really great defensive teams, man. Like when you look back on if you read the profiles and the books and whatever, and watch the documentaries, like it was all about Pat Riley getting after these guys and taking them to Santa Barbara and making them sweat for like 5 days straight. And just a shout out to Michael Cooper, who is a guy who would probably have his jersey in the rafters for any other franchise in the NBA. And he just happened to play with 3 Hall of Famers. And, he's a beloved figure, and he's the only defensive player of the year in Lakers history. But man, he's a guy who definitely who was a linchpin in those championship teams because of how great he was as a defensive stopper.
Yeah, he had a major impact on those teams, and it'll be interesting to see who the Lakers this season turn to as their defensive stopper. I mean, obviously you're not going to find just a Michael Cooper anywhere, right? I mean, he's a legendary player, right? He's one of the all-time great defenders, but this Lakers team is going to need their Michael Cooper player, their guy that they can really stick on some of the best offensive players in the league, especially with all the wings that we have right now. We know Kyle Kuzma spent a lot of his offseason working on his defense and his ability to defend wings. Josh Hart can do it to a degree. KCP can do it to a degree. So it's going to be Brandon Ingram, of course, with his length. Think back to him blocking Carmelo Anthony's shot last season when they were playing the Thunder. So it's going to be really interesting to see who really steps it up on that end of the floor, because I think that may end up being the real story of this Lakers season, is the ability to get stops and then that allowing them to get out.
Yeah, that's a great point. And one of the things that was kind of running through my mind when you were saying that is, I kind of thought to myself, I was going to ask you this, Trevor, is in my head, if the game's on the line, you're playing Golden State, you're up by 1, and time's running out, and Kevin Durant has the ball, who do you want guarding him? And the obvious answer to me is LeBron James.
Yeah.
Who would be that second guy for you? Say LeBron has the night off or is hurt or something.
The second guy for me, if it's Kevin Durant in particular, I'm probably sticking Ingram on him just because of the length and the ability to at least contest the shot. It may not even matter much with KD whether or not you're contesting. I mean, he can be automatic at times, but I just think Ingram would be the best kind of mirror match in terms of their length and body size and all that. And I like the way that he can contest a shot. So I'd probably go with him, but you know what? You've got some interesting options there. Even if you want to go small, Josh Hart is so physically strong. Maybe you can bump KD off his spot, force him into a shot that's from a location that's not ideal for him. Although realistically, KD's range is unlimited. He can hit from anywhere. So maybe I'm talking myself out of that. But yeah, I would definitely go Ingram, I believe. Yeah. No, I agree with that. KD is one of the, honestly, one of the best scorers in NBA history, even though his career is not over, not even close to over. I think that's already a lock for that guy. And I was kind of thinking the same thing with Ingram. And then part of what was running through my mind was, well, even if LeBron is on KD, the Lakers like to switch so much that, he's probably going to get switched off KD at some point if they throw enough screens at him. And that's where, when you talk about Kyle Kuzma focusing on defense this summer, that's one of the biggest developments, in my opinion, that the Lakers could have this season. Because if you were to throw out a hypothetical lineup of Lonzo Ball, Josh Hart, LeBron James, Kyle Kuzma, and Brandon Ingram, those are 4 guys who can definitely hold their own defensively, in LeBron, in BI, in Lonzo, and in Josh Hart. The question would be Kuzma. And he's a guy who, kind of got taken advantage of sometimes last year, a better post defender than most people think, but when it comes to ISO ball, he's not exactly the guy that you want checking a guy like KD. So if he really has been in the gym focusing on defense as much as he says he has, which a guy like Kuzma, who's out, picking Rondo's brain in film sessions and calling up Kobe to go work out with him, I don't see why that wouldn't be the case. But if he is, focusing on defense as much as he says he is, that can be a crucial point in the Lakers season. Because a switching defense depends on all 5 guys being able to hold their own. And if Kuzma can be out there on the floor and defend to a reasonable degree, then his offense on the other side of the floor is so much more of a boost than putting out another defensive-minded player for that 5-man lineup where you switch everything. So, long story short, I think that Kuzma, he's kind of one of the guys that, to a certain degree, we know who he is, but if he can come out and he can play defense to I don't know, 50% better than what he did last year, that is a huge development for the Lakers, and that makes their potential closing lineup, something we talked about earlier, that much more deadly. Absolutely. Yeah. If Kuzma can take that next step on the defensive end, which I spoke just the other day with his trainer, Clint Parks, who believes 100% that he's going to, it's going to be really interesting to see, not just what lineup closes, but what Kuzma's ceiling is going to be, because he's already got such a diverse offensive skill set. If he can develop his defense to the point where it's even close to what he can do on the offensive end, then you're talking about a really, really special player. Joey, I think we've covered a ton here today. I feel like we still could talk about a million more things going on. And that's the brilliant thing about the Lakers. There's always so much going on around them that we can discuss. But I really appreciate you coming on here and going through all of this and discussing everything going on with training camp and everything. We're definitely going to have to do this again, man.
Yeah, for sure, man. I mean, this has been a lot of fun. You know your stuff, Trevor. This has been a good little chat.
Definitely. Let's for sure do this again. Cause like I said, I feel like we could go on for another hour here, but at that point, I think we would lose all of our listeners. They'd be like, all right, these guys are saying too much. Anyway, guys, everybody, thank you so much for listening. Make sure you guys head over to iTunes and rate, review, and subscribe to this show. And don't forget to go head over to LakersNation.com. Your home for everything Lakers. We post all the big Lakers topics there, as well as throw in our editorials from myself and Hannah Kulik and all of our other great writers over there at LakersNation.com. And of course, don't forget to go pick up some Uptime energy drinks at 7-Eleven, GNC, or Amazon.com. We will be back soon with another show, and our next show, we'll get to talk about actual Lakers basketball games because preseason will have started at that point. So we'll be doing some breakdowns on that. Till next time, see ya.